Hello and welcome back to our After Dark show. I'm Zoe, and coming up we've got interviews with Anthem, Forza Horizon 5 and Sekiro Shadows Die Twice. But before we get into all that, remember, if you tweet at us with your questions on Twitter using the hashtag AfterDark, you could be in with a chance of winning a brand new Honor phone. And I'm really jealous of that, trust me. So let's start off. Here with me, I've got John Warner from Anthem, who's here to tell me all about the game. So we have some delicious footage right here. But first off, can you just give us a quick intro to Anthem?
Sure. So Anthem is our new IP from BioWare. It's a shared world shooter-looter or social RPG where you get to take on the role of a freelancer, which means basically you get to put on this cool Javelin exosuit and fly around and fight things.
Nice. I mean, that's what you want, really. If you've got a cool exosuit, you want to make sure that people get hurt when you're wearing it.
Right.
Yeah.
I think it's in the owner's manual.
Yeah, pretty much. So what were you seeing on the screen right now? What's this giant mechanical beast?
So this is your Strider. It's your mobile base, and this is where you can go back to take on some different story missions. You can interact with your crew. We're seeing some of them here.
Who are
Faye
these guys?
just passed us by, and this is Halleck. Halleck actually drives the Strider, and Faye is one of the people who communicate with you while you're out in the field. This is Owen. Owen is also a person who communicates with you out in the field. They're known as ciphers. And you're going to get to know these people really well. They're super cool, and they're fun.
They look like they're very excited at the concept of you going outside in your exoskeleton, your Javelin.
Yeah, Halleck's a little crazy, but you know, that's beside the point.
Yeah. So we've heard Anthem being described as a dynamic living world.
Yes.
How do you make sure that it's ever changing?
Well, we built a system, an ecosystem, that would allow us to repopulate creatures in different times and in different places, so that it's not always just planted there, so you don't just run around the corner and, oh, hey, they're the same two guys I always fight here. Mm-hmm. Beyond that, there's a dynamic day and night cycle, dynamic weather, and dynamic world events that we can just inject in or have random. So there's always something a little surprising, always something interesting to find.
Mm-hmm. So how does your ecosystem work then?
I guess beyond all the mathematics that lie behind it, it's really just a way to take a section of the map and say these are the types of creatures who live at this part of the map, and then we can spawn them in different locations, just depending on different factors.
Mm-hmm. And dynamic events, that phrase of yours,
yes,
twigged in me something. What does that mean?
Well, it means that while you're going about your business, going off to a mission or going to just explore through the map, we can have certain interesting things happen, and they're randomized. So it might be a rescue mission, it might be you could stumble across a giant monster, which we'll see later on in the demo, the Ash Titan.
Awesome.
So yeah, you never know what you're going to find. It always brings that element of surprise to the party.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so obviously a big part of Anthem is the different javelins. At the moment, our player is outfitted in what I believe is a Colossus.
That is correct.
Now, what kind of a person would want to run around in a Colossus?
I don't know. Someone who loves to have fun, I think.
Yeah?
That's who it is.
You'd hope everyone playing this wants to have fun, but Colossus especially.
Yeah, the Colossus is great. And it is, well, you can outfit it to play kind of a tanking role. Instead of a dodge, the Colossus brings up a heavy shield, which we'll see later on, that can absorb a lot of damage. But you don't just have to be a bullet sponge for your team if you're playing the Colossus. This Colossus has a legendary mortar equipped, so he's got a lot of long-distance attacks on this. He's got a railgun on his right arm. So there's a lot of options for how you play any specific chassis, and it really is up to how you like to play and what your playstyle is.
Mm-hmm. So we've also seen glimpses of the Storm, which we'll see later on in this demo, which is kind of a bit more, I don't want to say magical, but it's a bit more elemental when it comes to javelins, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And I think that the trick with the Storm is the elemental attacks are great. They apply the status effects, which set up great combos for the rest of your team. You don't have a lot of armor, though. It's a really slim suit. And so you're quite vulnerable. When you're up in the air, you get a damage mitigating shield. When you're down on the ground, no shield.
No shield.
No shield. So it becomes kind of tricky. It's a neat skill balance. and a lot of fun to play. It's my favorite Javelin.
Yeah, it certainly looks enticing enough. So we also know there's the Ranger.
Yes.
Yes, yeah, which is the kind of everyman's javelin.
Yeah, the everyman's javelin. That's a good way of putting
like
it,
that?
right? I
Good.
do. When you're going into something new and you don't really know what you're getting yourself into, you might want to be equipping your Ranger because it has a nice balance. It's got some agility, it's got some good firepower, it's got an interesting melee strike. It's a good all-around.
Bit of everything. And there's also the Interceptor, which
Yes.
we've seen briefly in trailers.
Yes.
Tell me a bit about that.
I can tell you a little bit about that. I'm going to give you first.
Please do.
But we're going to talk about the Interceptor at great length later on. But in general, the Interceptor is really about agility and interesting gadgets. And having an Interceptor in your crew really gives you a lot of relief as far as mob control goes, and can provide a lot of interesting balance to the squad.
In the trailer, we saw it snatch out one of its comrades from under a giant foot, if I remember correctly. Definitely
Yes.
seems like a very speedy javelin.
It is a speedy javelin.
Yeah. So obviously, another big part of Anthem is flying.
Yes.
How was it difficult trying to get that verticality incorporated to the world?
It was incredibly difficult. Well, actually, incorporating the verticality into the world wasn't difficult. What was challenging was getting it to be simple and approachable, so that anybody could pick up the controller and play and be successful and feel like a superhero. And so that's where we really spent the bulk of our effort on flying. We spent literally a couple of years on it.
Wow.
Thousands of controller schemes that we just iterated on and tried. And I think we've landed at a place, gauging from our reaction at E3 and here at Gamescom, where it's a good balance.
Yeah. Now that's one of the Titans you mentioned earlier, correct?
Yeah, so what we just saw there was one of those dynamic world events, and that was an Ash Titan. That's a nasty one, and you hope that you have other people around you or a squad when one of those pops up.
So how hard is it to take down the Titans?
It's hard. It's hard.
I don't want you to say it's easy, because
Yeah,
what's the fun in
if
that?
you're low level and you've got like common or even uncommon or maybe even rare gear, you probably want to get out of there.
Wow.
Yeah, they're tough.
Yeah, so how come they're striding around the world? What happened to bring them into being?
Well, so the story behind the world of Anthem is that the gods who created this world were midway through their process, and then they mysteriously vanished, leaving the world in this kind of weird, funky, unfinished state, with the machines that they were using to create the world just kind of scattered about. And they turn on and they turn off, and they create all sorts of interesting scenarios for our heroes. But the Titans are also a remnant of what the Shapers were doing, and who knows what they were up to, if they were shrubbers or what, who knows, gardeners.
Yeah.
But they were part of the Shapers scheme, and we don't know what their purpose was. We do know that they wake up and they wander around and cause bad things to happen.
And they hit really, really hard.
They hit really hard.
Yeah. So are we about to see the Colossus's charge ability?
Yeah, so you notice that the Colossus pulled out its shield, and the shield has a little health bar on it, you can see there, so that's its damage. It can absorb that much. Once that goes down, you put it away. There's a little cooldown associated with that, and then you can pull it back out.
So I've got to ask, seeing all of my comrades flying around here, is there a height cap on flying?
Yes, there is. In the IP, in the world of Anthem, there's no such thing as space travel. No one has tried to get off this planet because up above in the atmosphere, there's a thing called the rip stream. And you get up that high and it literally tears you apart.
Not a good thing.
Not a good
Nope.
thing. On the whole scale of good and bad, I would go with bad.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Awesome. So we have a question from Twitter already from Tag, something else just been passed me, which is good. Tag Hungary, asking, if you're down and not revived by your teammates, do you miss out on any of the end of match rewards? And is there an incentive to revive teammates?
No, you won't miss out on any end of match rewards. I think that we don't want to put you in a position where your teammates control you by not reviving you and finishing the mission. So you'll be okay there. As far as incentives to revive your friends, yeah, we'll put challenge medals and different achievements and accomplishments in that encourage you to be a good player.
Yeah, awesome. And another Twitter question, from Sean Rhodes, are there any special or rare mobs with rare loot that solo or small groups can tackle?
Sure. Yeah, there's all sorts of elite and interesting named bosses and lieutenants who roam the world. And it will come down to your skill and the level of your pilot and the rarity of your gear.
Yeah. So when can people expect to try this for themselves? Is a demo on the cards?
A demo is in the cards, and we're going to be talking about that in detail very, very soon.
Ooh, enticing. Okay, definitely keep a mental note out for that.
All right.
What kind of post-launch plans do you have?
We have good post-launch plans.
Tell me about the post-launch plans.
Ooh,
You can't just say
that
good.
investigative
Come on.
journalism.
You're pushing real hard.
Actually, we're not quite ready to talk about the details
Okay.
of our post-launch service, but I do want everybody to know that we have been paying very close attention to making a great live service, and we want to create an experience that will be engaging and fulfilling and a lot of fun.
So I've also heard you talk about the weather of Anthem. How
Yes.
does weather affect the world?
So it affects the world in a couple different ways. Applying status effects to your javelins is one way that the world and the weather can affect you. It also affects things like visibility, so there's a tactical element to it as well. And it has the lovely side effect of making the world look gorgeous at sunrise and sunset as well.
Yeah, that's a good thing. So what kind of status effects are there?
So we're seeing a couple here. You'll see that there's ice, there's fire, and the storm just fired off an electrical attack there. There's an extra one there, an acid attack, and there's hazards, which is a little bit different from a status effect. But we'll see later on in the demo. The swarm tyrant deploys some hazards into the battlefield.
So in terms of weather, what kind of status effects does weather deploy?
Well, you know what? We're still playing with that right now and tweaking it. So I'm going to say that's TBD.
Okay, that's fair enough. So you've said overtly that this isn't an MMO. How much more difficult is it to play it single player versus co-op?
Well, we do a little bit of damage scaling when you're playing in a small group of one or two, so that it's not overwhelming. I think that, again, it's going to kind of come down to your skill and what kind of gear and levels you've got, but it certainly isn't impossible. Playing solo is an activity that's available for you through the main campaign, the story missions, and then once you get past the main campaign into activities like Strongholds, Stronghold requires you to have 4 players.
Yeah, okay. So we've got another question from Twitter from David Devine asking, can we hear more about the crafting in Anthem? What can we craft? How does it work with the loot ranking?
Ooh, with a loot ranking?
Yeah.
David, that's a very specific question.
Requiring a specific answer.
So I don't want to get into the details of the crafting system just yet, because we really want to roll that out in a nice way. But I will say this, everything that you pick up in the world loot-wise has a secondary value. So you can break it down, you get materials from it, you can unlock blueprints through various means, and then you can craft those weapons. Crafting is an interesting way, especially in the early game, to get higher status, higher rarity weapons, but there's also a great place for it in the elder game as well, and I enjoy it. It's a great part of the game.
So do you have any tips for players who are just starting out Anthem?
Yes, I do. Fly a lot and move. Be mobile. A great way to die in Anthem is to stay rooted on the ground and try to take cover. That will get you dead. Even in a Colossus, the Colossus, as big as it is, has some great mobility aspects to it, and man, just stay on your toes.
Yeah, so we've heard you mention Strongholds before. Could you just explain to me a bit of what they're about? You said they were very difficult.
Yeah, Strongholds are meant to be a challenging piece of repeatable content. So you'll go into a stronghold, it's got a specific kind of mission path in there with a boss fight at the end, and it's a repeatable activity so that you can crank up the difficulty level to go for the very best loot rewards.
Sweet. I think we're seeing one in action right now, actually.
We are. This is one of our strongholds, or a segment of it at least. You saw earlier in the demo it said in the interest of time. A stronghold takes anywhere from 35 to 45 minutes to complete, depending on how well you're playing. So you want to go in there with a full crew with a good set of gear.
Yeah. So we have another question from Twitter from Greg Albert. When can we see some new footage?
Oh, new footage. New footage, you say?
New footage. Brand sparkling new.
We are going to be showing some new stuff next week at PAX.
Awesome.
And then we'll be rolling out new stuff as we go into the fall.
Amazing. So now that we're in the Stronghold, about to jump down into something that's definitely going to be just good news, I can feel it. How did you create these Strongholds? What was your kind of approach to creating such a difficult experience for players?
I think that applying, getting some of our best level designers onto the task and thinking about not only what would make a great experience the first time through, but what keeps it great when you've gone through it your 40th time through or your 100th time through it? What can keep it fresh and interesting and challenging for players at that point? And to me, that's really what makes a Stronghold interesting, is its repeatability and its interest over the long haul.
Yeah, and another very timely Twitter question. We were just diving through the water just there, and Eduardo Adams asks if there'll be any hostile creatures under the water trying to attack us.
I think we do have some hostile creatures under the water, but underwater combat is not a thing. So it's, again, more of a mobility challenge than anything.
More of just getting the hell out of there real quick.
That's right.
Yeah.
Be skillful, be quick.
But of course, although combat is a massive part of Anthem, you have that hub world as well, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Can you tell me a bit about the hub world?
Sure. So Fort Tarsus is your own personal hub, and it's the center of freelancer activity in this part of the world. This is a place where you don't share it with others. It's a place where you can have story moments. You'll meet all of your NPCs and your crew are there. So if you're a player who loves to take time investigating and speaking with everyone and digging into all the lore of the world, this is a great place to do that. This is where you'll also customize and personalize your javelins, where you can purchase items to put onto your javelins and store extra gear that you might have. Now, if you're a player who just really likes to get in and get out, get the next thing, that's also completely viable. You can come in from a mission, go load up your new loadouts, any new gear that you may have gotten, and then you can head right back out. It's really up to you.
So in what kind of ways can you customize your javelin?
So lots of ways. So you'll start out in a personalization where even if we're both having the same level 1 ranger, you can paint it differently, you can apply different materials to it, so that it really will look differently. And then as you advance into the game and start unlocking different options, there are different cosmetic options. There are helmets and breastplates and decals that you can apply to it to really personalize it and make it your very own.
Nice pretty colours. That's
Indeed.
what everyone loves.
I love pretty colours,
yeah,
right?
Who doesn't? So another question from Twitter from Koos Henleen. What's the essence of Anthem? What do you have to do and why?
The essence of Anthem.
Yeah, dive right into it. The essence.
I'm sure that I got a 2-minute answer for that.
Yeah.
So I think that there's a couple of ways you can look at that. When we look at it in lore from the IP, the essence of being a freelancer is to go out and be a hero. Not everyone can wear a Javelin exosuit. And not everyone has one. The world of Anthem is not one of mass production. There are no factories that are just spitting these things out. Each suit is a handcrafted kind of work of art. You can think of it like a 1930s era Rolls Royce.
Oh, yes, please.
Handcrafted. And that's what these are. So they're rare and they're precious. And only a few people get to have them. So that's kind of your job, is to go out and make sure that you're shutting down these rogue Shaper relics so that people can be safe. Now, from a player point of view, what you're really going after is building up your pilot, building up all of your exosuits, going for those really rare items, getting your gear score way high so that you can tackle the coolest, best challenges in the game.
So there's almost an element of celebrity to being a freelancer then?
Yes, there is an element of celebrity to being a freelancer, both in the game, excuse me,
Don't worry about it.
in the game as well as in the IP.
Awesome, great. So what other kind of things can you do in your hub world? Is that where you do most of your crafting, or can you craft on the go?
That's where you do most of your crafting, would be in the hub world. Like I said, customizing your exo and exploring lore in the world and having chats, getting missions, and that type of activity.
So how do you find more lore in the world? Are these like collectibles you find, or is it mainly through listening to people talk?
It's an element of both of those things. We saw earlier in the demo there was an Arcanist resonance that you can find, and those are scattered throughout the world, and that'll be a way that we can share some of the world history with you. There'll be other things that you can find in the world that will give you little bits and pieces of the history. There'll be people that you can find and talk to. And then just listening to people inside the fort will also deliver cool hints about the world.
Awesome, sweet. So we'll finish off with one last question from Twitter from I don't know how to pronounce this handle, so I'm going to try Y-to-Daf, maybe?
Maybe, I like it. Let's go with that.
Let's go with it, sure. Are there such a thing as stealth kills in Anthem?
Well, it's pretty hard to be stealthy when you're wearing a metric ton of steel on your body, right? So I'm going to say no to that.
Okay, cool, great. Well, that's all we have time for. Thanks so much for joining me to talk about Anthem.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks. So stay tuned here at After Dark to see what's coming next in the wonderful world of gaming.